The person coming on today's podcast, she changed my life. She changed my life for the better. The first time I met her was a couple of months ago in a coffee chat, and she truly made me see, taught me, and made me realize what was holding back, which was my money trauma, and she taught me how to heal it, all within a span of 2 minutes. That's it. That's all it took for her. And that call changed my life. I still remember looking back to that call. I remember just closing my eyes and just listening to her voice, because her voice itself was so special and beautiful and soothing and healing, most importantly. And I was so honored when this beautiful, beautiful soul of a woman accepted to come on my podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Soulfully Aligned Business. And I'm really, really honored to have you here. I'm Shruti Vidyasundaram, your host, and a spiritual soul purpose and an intuitive business guide. I'm really passionate about guiding people who are in the beginning of their business journey or who are in the pivoting stage of their journey to find their soul's purpose, to find their aligned purpose and what has brought them to this earth and transform it into a successful, aligned business. And our today's guest is Kat Chu. She is a third generation shaman and she's a spiritual healer. To be honest, I can use a million words to describe her and it would not suffice. We talk about trauma, we talk about emotions, we talk about how they affect us and our lives and how they transform us and our life's purpose, the journey of our life. It's everywhere and anywhere, but it was one of the most beautiful conversations that I've ever had. Disclaimer, we also talk about abuse. So please keep your eyes out for that. If you're someone who is still healing from that phase, then you can just skip over that part. Again, I'm just so honored to bring this woman on board. And the episode also made me realize that through this podcast, how grateful I am to have met such amazing people who I might not have gotten a chance to meet otherwise or to know otherwise. So thank you. This is my thank you, the universe, for this podcast. I can't wait. I can't wait for you guys to listen. Thank you. First of all, I really want to thank you for accepting to come on this podcast. It means so much to me, and even your content has inspired me so much. And I've been reading your posts and it's beautiful. So I did a bit of research, right? Because I was not able to find your website. And then I went and I think it was a Wix website from about 2 years back, if I'm not wrong. And there was this line there that some people who know Kat say that she's not from this world.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's really true. That's how I felt. So thank you. Thank you for your presence. Means a lot to me.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. So for those of the listeners who don't know about the amazing work that you do and your just amazing presence, would you like to introduce yourself to them? And what would you
Yes,
want to
sure.
say? Yeah.
Okay, I have quite an interesting story. I'm Kat Chu. I was born into a lineage of Chinese healers. My mother is Singaporean Chinese. And so I grew up in that wonderful world where I always say magic was very alive. For me, I was brought up to understand the world as yin and yang. It was part of my culture. I was blessed to be able to see reality from that format from a very young age. I studied Chinese medicine. That's my first form of working with people and healing. So I was an acupuncturist for years. I opened and ran a community clinic in Nottingham in the UK, where we had lots of people working with us, lots of different therapists, and really the kind of messages and the voices, in a certain sense, that come through me have always been present. And it's only really the last kind of 10, 12 years that I've really took on the training. I was very lucky to meet an Egyptian lady who was a psychic medium, and she took me under her wing and taught me a lot of incredible Egyptian of how to do things and understanding the world. And she really honed me and took me on this journey. So I now kind of channel direct in from source for whoever's there for people, and I activate people's souls. So the work I do is to reconnect people to that part of them that is beyond time and space, our absolute truth, as you wish to say. And it draws the magic and the miracles and everything towards us. I always say, it takes all the hard work out of manifesting, because sometimes I think there's so many people that I work with where we see this journey and this process of manifesting, where people still see themselves as a separate being. And when we can work in the space where everything is one, pure consciousness, we can magnetize everything towards us, so that everything we need is already there before we need it. We just need to recognize it. And it's a different approach. When we're very seen as individuals, we feel like we're pulling something in. But when we can awaken to that level and we can suddenly see that everything we need is already there for us, we just realize that life is happening for us and not to us. And it just creates an entirely new experience for people. And I'm much under the belief, although I'm always ready to be proven wrong, that as we ascend and more people begin to live from this reality and viewpoint and connect to that part of themselves, it's this energy and this space of existence that will allow humanity to change and really allow us to embrace what seems like chaos, I think, as a human race at the moment, and allow us to tip the scales and balance and harmonize. And so I'm blessed to be able to find people's souls, find the lost parts of them, and reconnect them to their divine truth and to the miracle that they are.
Oh, wow. Okay, first of all, whenever you speak, even the last call we had, I don't know if you noticed, I just closed my eyes. And I've hardly done that for people, where I just close and just listen to their voices, and I'm so captured. And I don't know the word that I can put it in there. So I'm not going to pressurize myself into. So yeah, but oh my gosh. Okay. So I have two questions to ask, right? One is, personally, I was an extremely intellectual person in my previous life. Okay. I was extremely intellectual. I was extremely logical. And I underwent my spiritual awakening last year, sometime in April, May. Like I felt something big is going to happen for months. But I didn't expect it would be that.
Yeah, that's
As
how it works.
it really hits you on the face when it happens to you. And since then, as you said, like, I have channelized messages, I've downloaded messages, and I've just been a channel, just a physical form which translates messages, which there is no ego involved there. And suddenly I started knowing a lot of things. Just, it didn't have an explanation, like, I just knew. But it took a lot of time for my brain to accept it. It kept questioning it, kept questioning the knowings. And I think after a few days, some after a few weeks, and some after a few months, when they started to come true, then my brain was like, okay, something's happening. So I'm just going to leave it to you to do it. So for people who are in the beginning of their journeys, who are in the beginning of their rebirth journey, who are channelizing messages, but they are still, it takes time for your mind, body, and soul to get aligned. What would you tell them? What would you, because like, how does the process look like? I'm sure it's different for different people, but what does it mean? What does it mean when someone says, I'm channelizing a message? What does it mean when someone says, I'm becoming a medium, a psychic medium? And what would you tell them who are in the beginning of the journey?
I think those messages have always been there. The thing is, when people say, "Oh, I've had these thoughts," when you talk to people and we really look into it, most people find that voice has always been there. Most of this stuff is, like I said, it's about recognizing. When we really look back at it, people are like, "Oh, actually, I've had these messages all of my life." But the difference is that suddenly we begin to listen to them, and it's like it gets louder and louder. And it, as you say, it's a different energy. We are raised and taught that we live in a very physical universe, that it's this short process and we have to get everything done and we have to appreciate every moment and we should be doing. And we just end up being human doings instead of human beings. The answer is already there. But the ego, because it feels separate, it wants to get things done. The difference in the voices is that the ego is always in a hurry. It always wants everything to be done or to happen yesterday. It's like, that's the voice that wakes us up at 11 o'clock at night and says, we need to do this now. And even consciously, we're like, we can't do that now. It's 11 o'clock at night. Like, it's not, now is not the time, my friend. But the voices that we hear that come through, that are our truth, that are our soul, they're much more gentle, but they're firm but fair. They sit within the background and it's just this repetition. The amount of times I work with people and they're like, I've heard these words all my life, but then all of a sudden one day I understood what they meant. So it's not like the message hasn't been there. It's just all of a sudden, oh, hang on a minute. Now I know what they mean. And it's always the same in spirituality. I laugh when we have these aha moments or realizations. It's always the kind of facepalm moment. Oh, like, why did I not just get this? What have I been doing? We can't understand how we could ever be in a space where we couldn't see that truth because it's so close to us. We're brought up in this masculine energy, in this very physical world, and we need those aspects of the logical. It's the logical is the part that stops us walking out in the road in front of a car. It helps us to work out what money we need for our bills and how to create systems and approach the world in a more formatted and logical sense. But we also need that connection to the feminine because that's the creative energy. Without that, we're just the doing. We need to encourage the being.
Yeah.
And then we can create the logical solution. But we have to understand what it is and who it is we truly are to be able to create something and make a plan to be where we want to be and to call in the right things. And then once we're back on track, that's that moment where we suddenly think, hang on, all of this stuff is here and it's always been here. And people say, oh, these things have turned up in my life so many times and I've just ignored it, or I had something else to do, or I thought this was more important. This process of being is so hard for people to not do anything. We're so like we should be doing. It's this knowledge, this truth, when we can connect to it, that it creates this sense of fulfillment that we begin to understand and know that we will know exactly what we need to know. We know that everything we need will be there exactly when it needs to be. So there's no point worrying or trying to arrange it. Everything is as it should be. And when we can get on board with that, it just all falls away.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. I think, oh, it hit me quite hard because it's only in the past 4-5 months, I think, that I have truly been in the journey of surrendering and having faith that, when you're meant to get the answers, you'll get the answers. Don't go searching for answers. Just don't force it. Because Our ego comes in between and it wants to know everything, especially when you get into the trauma healing space and when you're in your own healing journey. You keep asking why and you try to decode it, you try to intellectualize it. And one of my guides, he was like, Shruti, does it even matter? Does the why even matter? Sometimes it doesn't. And it's been one of the hardest, but the most fulfilled journey that I've ever been through. And though it can feel mucky at times, it's the other side is just so beautiful. If there is another side, I don't know if there's another side, but it just, yeah, it just feels so beautiful. When you say that you guide people, and I'm going to specifically use guide and not help, right? Because yeah, that's what I get a feeling from you. And when you say that you guide people to connect with their soul, to connect with their higher selves, um, what do you actually mean? And what does it look like for the people who don't know anything about this world or who want to get into this world?
So the work I do is I'm called a sacred visionary. So I work in energetic form and I find that part of you in that existence and almost draw you back together. So if we see that one is the very logical side where most of us are, and one is order and chaos is the best way, and we bring it back and harmonize it. So it allows people to embrace that side of themselves. So the way that we work with visions is we go in and we find those aspects of people through visions, through sessions, and connect and reconnect that energy to people, reconnect them to that knowing. It's almost like turning the volume up on that voice, like we were talking earlier. We're turning it up. As I say, I'm a guide. I lead people to that, and I hold space for them to be able to exist within those higher frequencies. And their teachings come to them. It's beautiful. I can connect in and begin to show them and explain what's happening and help them to integrate that energy and bring it into themselves. And it's as we find as we begin to journey that more and more by the end of it, they're doing it for themselves. And I'm just there to share the experience, to cheer them on, to help them have faith. But it's about understanding our own true nature. So it's almost as if they're, when we look at, and the traditional Chinese and ancient texts talk about this. So we have this, what they call the three treasures, which is Jing, Qi, Shen. Yeah, so Jing is the physical body, and Shen is the mind, and Qi, obviously, you've probably heard, is the kind of primordial force, the energy, the life force energy, the animation of life.
Yeah.
So when it comes to dis-ease in flow, the issue starts at the top in the kind of chi level, the soul level. And if there is an issue there, or a lot of the time it's the lessons that we chose to learn in this lifetime, in this energy form. If they're not resolved or seen or observed at this level, then they trickle down and they become into the shun, they begin to affect the mind. So this is where a lot of we are in society at the minute. People are beginning to understand limiting beliefs, the subconscious mind, and how that controls 95% of our existence. And then if it's not dealt with at that level, it becomes a physical dis-ease. As the energy kind of slows down, the pattern kind of changes. Where we go in is we go in at the highest level, because I'm very much like, if we can resolve, we go in to find out what lesson it is that people are here to learn from that level. And I begin to show them and explain to them how they can see life from that viewpoint, so they can begin to see all the experiences that happened in their life as the learning process that it is from a really high nature. And at this point, we begin to understand there's nothing to heal. We begin to understand from a very deep aspect what appears to be trauma and the truth within it. And it allows people to observe those situations in their life, almost as the witness, as the observer,
Yeah.
And to see how, when we talk about everything that we need is already there, the friends, the families, the acquaintances, even the strangers we bump into in the street, we can begin to see how everything is only a teacher to us. Every experience has the wisdom within it that we need to heal ourselves, to become greater beings, to recognize our power, to know that we are magnificent, to be able to expand into that soul being that's bigger than this entire planet itself. And we can learn lessons from that level. And the energy, the healing, the fulfillment, the inner peace, that kind of emptiness in the mind is, for me, the most exciting thing about that. It's a space I could quite happily revel in forever. And it just brings so much peace and freedom and joy and the real miracles. I always laugh. People, oh, when are the miracles coming? And it's, if you've plotted it out in the logical mind, it's not a miracle. A miracle is something that's unexpected, but people want the miracle. It's going to be £1 million and it's going to be a house with this many bedrooms. And they're so fixated on what it should be, they can't see that it's already. So we pull back so that we can see that everything is a miracle. And through that comes forgiveness, comes that true understanding. There's no more anxiety. There's no need to rush. It's that connection into everything. We begin to see that reality that this whole experience of life is orchestrated entirely for us. Like they say, the film. There's a process in quantum mechanics where we understand how the forms of some atomic particles can exist in many places. We understand that they move faster than the speed of light. So if we think about it and begin to understand that, we think when I move my hand from here to here, it's the same hand. But what really happens in energetic form is that this vision of this hand is recreated so fast, it's faster than the speed of light. So to my perception, it appears to be one solid movement, but actually it's like a frame in the film when we can slow it down.
Yeah.
And this is how energy is created in every moment. This is how reality is formed. And there is a form of energy, of pure love, that recreates the entire cosmoverse for each of us in every nanosecond, faster than the speed of light, to be able to weave this pattern of reality to create for us an experience that will open our heart and bring us closer to our soul, to our truth. And when we understand that amount of energy and action and creation is going on within a time frame that we can't even comprehend, it is just so beautiful. And we see that everything, there is so much love and power behind that to create our experience. Whereas so many of us are under the belief that we're this tiny little being hanging onto this rock, flying through space, just trying to fight it all off. Life is not a series of events that happen to us. Everything is created for us. When we can come out of this dualistic nature where we believe everything is wrong and right,
Paradoxes.
We can see the truth in it.
Yeah.
And when we can live in that energy and know we cannot be any more loved by source itself or by our true selves, it just all drops away. It's the most incredible energy, and we can just revel in it, just be. There's no need to do anything because all of that is already happening, and that's pretty immense. Like, yeah, I have to do this today, and I've got this to-do list, and blah, blah, blah. When we understand that whether we do or do not finish the list today, there is an experience within that is teaching us in that process. When we can just drop into that and think, what is it that I feel like doing today? Then everything unfolds in front of us. There's no rush. There's no hurry. There's no shoulda, coulda, woulda. It just is.
Yeah. I think the word healing in today's world needs to change. And probably it's my spiky point of view, because a lot of people who come into the space come to fix themselves. And probably that's the path that they have to take, that they come to fix themselves and they transform and they were like, They are like, okay, this was not about fixing at all. And probably that's a path that they're supposed to take. But when you were sharing your wisdom, I had so many images floating through my mind. I think a pivotal moment for me in my healing journey, in my awakening journey, was understanding that my soul chose all of this. My soul has chosen every experience that I've ever lived through, even my most intense traumas. Right. And I think I was having a conversation with a very amazing friend of mine about sexual abuse. And I know it's a sensitive topic to a lot of people, disclaimer. And for a long time, I had blocked it out. I had blocked out the whole experience of it. And then as I went in my healing journey, I was able to accept it that, hey, okay, XYZ happened. But I think it's only been in the last couple of months that I have learned to fall in love with that experience. And for those people who, I'm sorry if some of the listeners are getting triggered, but is it possible for you to fall in love with your most traumatic experiences? And is it possible for you to fall in love with the people who traumatized you? And I think that sort of happened to me, falling in love with their soul, right? And that sort of really happened to me where there was just unconditional love, irrespective of what people have done or have not done, because both sides can cause trauma. And I think that I got that realization, and I came to that point when I realized that it was my soul that chose everything. And I realized that I would not be where I am without those experiences. I would not be able to connect to so many women. And probably I cannot judge whether it's a good or a bad thing. For me, everything is, it just is, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I would have been able to connect with so many women if not for those experiences, and be so aware and be so empathetic without those experiences. And when, as you were speaking, I remembered my journey in the past couple of months, which has been life changing. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And it's interesting, I think, with abuse and trauma and things like that, because there are aspects of it that remain in the body.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things I think I learned from some of my experiences that I viewed was to understand or to ask the question, is this mine to
Yeah.
hold?
Yes.
And it's really important because the quality of our lives is connected very much to our connection to our true nature and existence. Experience and existence and pure consciousness meet in the mind. And there are so very many souls on this earth who are so disconnected from their truth. Their expression of life is dysfunctional when we stand back and look at it. And so it's very difficult in a sense because people are triggered by it to say that we fall in love with the perpetrator, so to speak, or the experience. But I think when we can see the genuine lesson or
Exactly.
what had come from it, we can begin to be not so angry and frustrated at it because it's purely ourselves that we end up hurting by holding that. And it's this belief again that things happen to us.
Yeah.
And it seems incredulous to say to people, oh, this happened for you, because it feels so raw and so offensive and painful and personalized as the individual. But in so many cases, when we can walk through it and see the bigger picture, it opens up something incredible for us. I've had the blessing to work with a lot of humanitarian projects, and I worked with people who were held in concentration camps. We we cannot begin to imagine the amount of trauma that these people have experienced. It was, when I first started working, I was very nervous about working with people like that, and the things that I was going to hear. And fortunately, the people that I work with, they offer you counselling and things because of the stories that you're going to hear. And what was fascinating for me was that I went in there, especially because this was in my younger years. I've been working there a long time now. And I came out of university and stuff when I'd learned to do my acupuncture. And I was very much under the impression at a young age that I was going to heal the world. Like, I came out of there, I was like, I know how to do this now. I'm going to heal everyone. And I came in there with this, like, I'm going to help these people. And my idea of what suffering was and what they'd been through. And they were like, don't pity me. I am not a victim. Never had I seen so much strength in my life. And it was funny because I learned so much from that first experience, because I went out there, the healer, I'm going to help these people. And I came back realizing that they had taught me more about life than I could ever wish to learn myself.
Yeah.
People that had been through things like that, through no fault of their own, through just existing. And some of these people have been in there for years. And you think, how?
Yeah.
And there was so many powerful experiences and teachings for me in that experience. In a certain sense, it made me and my kind of idea of, you think you've got issues, kind of thing. But it's not about comparison. It's about what it teaches us. I've also had, with working and doing the clinic, doing a lot of palliative care, working with people who've had cancer, who've had lifelong health journeys. And the amount of people that they came out the other end of something like cancer, and when they said, best thing that ever happened to me. And you think, what? Because it was that thing that made them go, I'm not doing this anymore. This is where this has got me. And they just changed. And they said their family, their friends, they're like, who are you now? They can't recognize them, not just in the way that they dress, but just in their entire being. And it was that triggered the change. And they're like, God, I'm so much happier now. My life is completely different. It's a totally different experience. And it's not that they've fallen in love with the cancer, but they understand
Exactly.
and know within themselves that it has, not to say that they fell in love with it, but they saw an innate beauty within that experience that allowed them to suddenly see what life could be. And they're like, without that, I would have never seen it. I don't know how I carried on my life like that. We talk about our individual experiences, but when we see it in the collective and we begin to understand that we can either become a victim continuously of that our whole life to remain in that energy, or we can begin to understand that there is something else within it, within the depths of it. It shows us that there's gold within those experiences. And perhaps it's just sometimes how we're taught to view them and to make them part of our story and claim ownership of it as an experience. But when we understand that it wasn't ourselves that created the experience, that there's something else within it, then we can begin to rise up. And it's only from that level of observation and witnessing that we can see the fallacy in all processes of violence, of abuse, of trauma, of hatred. We can see that it only exists on a certain frequency, and that we can choose not to exist on that frequency.
I know, right? And I think I could not have put it better. Because I think when we go through these life-changing processes, right? One, we seeing it as an individualistic perspective versus taking a couple of steps back and seeing it as a collective experience. That's one. But I think there are two kinds of people who are so angry at themselves and they get in the guilt mode. They are so angry at themselves for being the person that they are, for being the person that they are in certain moments, right? Either that, or they are angry at the world. They are so angry at the world. But I don't think these two are two different things. They are the same thing, because your outer world is your inner world, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the way we view ourselves going through these experiences and the way we view others, it can be our friends and colleagues or people who matter to us going through these experiences, are so different.
Yes, exactly. We witness other people's reactions and behavior very different to our own experience.
Yeah.
There's always, it's this process about observing or getting involved. So very much as humans, and with a lot of us, it's in our nature to try and fix. But even when we look back at the Buddha, spiritual enlightenment came when he was sat under the tree,
Yeah.
just observing. He didn't get up and go and get involved in people's affairs. He just watched and learned from others' nature about his own nature. So all these people that are around us are our teachers. Especially, there's a wonderful saying by Ram Dass, if you think you're enlightened, go and spend a week with your family. And our family will show us all the ingrained patterns, all the ancestral stuff, all the things that come through generations. And if we can just disconnect, it's like the greatest guidebook is just right there in front of us. And yes, there is this thing where people have this anger and they hold onto it. And it is always, as you say, it's a redirection of self, a reflection. And there's a lot of people that kind of, they get angry that they get angry. It's just like these layers and layers of creation of this energy. And none of us want to admit that, like, oh, I think maybe I'm not my biggest fan inside. But the truth is, it's not about learning to push it away. It's not about thinking there's anything wrong with it. It's about embracing it. If we think about this little child that came into the world, and then all of a sudden one day we came to the realization and everyone was like, yeah, you've got to wear this suit now that we've all been wearing for years. And it's a very heavy suit and it doesn't fit very well. And if we see this child, this hurt, angry, upset child that's just so sick and tired of the world and almost in the corner facing away and hunkering down and just doesn't want to be touched or anything and is just full of this, our natural reaction would be to wrap our arms around it.
Yeah.
Not to go in there and say, why are you angry? What's wrong with you? You shouldn't be angry. This is a bad thing. But we can end up, when we connect to it, feeling as though, oh God, I'm angry again. It's like, but we're just self-perpetuating. And the thing is, it's okay. But why we can't, until we embrace that part of ourselves and say, it's okay to be angry. What can I do to help you? What did you need in the first place? Why are you so angry? Until we can get to that level, that depth. And the beauty of the work that I do is that we can meet those parts of self and literally stand across. And you say, you get all the pictures and people, they're like, you know, I was laughing. I had a lady the other day. We had a session at 9:30 in the morning. She sent me a message at 4:30 in the afternoon. She said, I don't know where I've been all day. Like, she said that what we saw, that vision, she said, it's just here, like it's just present all day. And the energy is still shifting and moving. And like, it's continued. We can connect to those parts almost physically and have those conversations and begin to unwind and work with that energy and understand the sensations and the intensity and how we connect to that. Because there's the energy that there's nothing right or wrong about the energy, the sensation, it just is. But there's part of us, the ego goes, oh, I don't like that, I don't like this. And it starts to tell us there's a problem with it because of the judgments of others. And to be able to see the reactions of others that's the process. But people talk about embracing these feelings, but to be able to visualize them and to have those conversations, that's how we really truly embrace it, because we can exist then outside of that space of blame and shame and guilt and I should be better. The amount of people say, I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't be this.
Yeah.
It's got that good old word, should. Who's to say?
Yeah.
If you meet someone that's in their dysfunction, do we let them just continue to be that way around us?
Okay. Oh my God. I was Your last question really hit me hard because I was having a conversation about this with my guide yesterday. And so my point of view was, okay, before that, it is, oh, I have so many streams of thoughts going on. And it's again, like the past 4 to 5 months, I've realized that I was fearing my fears. And it took me some time to accept and love that part of myself because, after all, it's a part of my physical self. It's a part of who I am. And when I say I love it, I don't mean I just accept my anger and just sit with it. It means I'm not angry at my anger. I'm not fearing my fears. And that was transformational for me. And it was crazy. When, okay, so yesterday I was having that conversation with my guide, and it was my spiky point of view again that if a person is their mind, body, and soul is disconnected and they're dysfunctional, right? Is it our job to go and guide them? Or do we need to wait for them to realize that, hey, they are not in the right space and come and ask for help, right? In their words, it's help. Like we know that we are just guiding them, we're not helping them. And it was my spiky point of view that we should let them on their path because it's their soul's path. And when they realize and when they come, it is our duty to guide them to the best that we can. But he was having a friction inside him because sometimes when we are in a position to help others or to guide others, we want to see a version of the world, isn't it?
Mm.
And we sometimes do our best to bring that version of the world to reality. And I know this is a question that goes on in a lot of people's mind who are in this service oriented, I don't want to call it business, but yeah.
It is, yeah.
So what is your take on that? What do you think?
Well, I think one of the interesting things is, again, when I came out of uni, I wanted to heal the world. I was like, right, I'm going to get this done. And part of that process for me was realizing that really, in truth, the only person that really needed healing was me.
Yeah.
Is the ultimate wounded healer. None of us like to hear it in the business, but our need to help others is truly a reflection of our need to help ourselves.
Mm.
If we can get to a point where we can allow and accept others exactly where they are, then we can truly help them. If we are trying to create something, it's a different matter. If we're trying, this is how the world should be, life has changed. It's still a belief. When we understand that the energies that create our experience are fortunately much more intelligent than we are, we can step back from it. When people come to us for guidance, then we can hold space, because in truth, all we're doing is holding space for others to be able to rise and exist within it themselves, to find their own answers. So the more I work on myself, the higher my energy, the better my energy, the more connected I am, the greater the space I can hold for others, the closer I can bring them to their truth.
Yeah.
I can show them the space, and I can allow them to find, and I can help them find the answers. I can guide them. But even then, their soul will only show them what is best for them in that moment. The beauty of it is it's nothing. I just connect into what I see, and and the amount of times where even I'm like, what's this about? And then at the end, they're like, oh, I had this experience, or it meant this, or this happened to me as a child. And it all, suddenly I understand what the vision was in connection to them, because it's exactly what they need with it. But yes, so my journey is my journey, and all I can show people is my journey. I can't show them any of their journey. It has to be their process. Our experiences, our life paths are so different. And that's when I say, in the sense that there's nothing to heal. It's just for us to be able to see the truth and to understand. So yeah, it's we can show people our concept, we can show people what we did to get to where we are, but what they'll get from it is different. Even in the business coaching, we see that there's 1,000 different messages from 1,000 different coaches, because some people found that doing video was the way that their audience was drawn towards them. Some people find that the post was the right way. Some people, you'll see an advert for someone saying you need to do more ads on this. You'll see an advert for someone saying you don't need to do any ads, or I didn't do presentations, or there's even in any market, there's people saying this is the way you should do it because that's the way that they did it. And they're right for the people that are drawn towards them. The work that I do, it's not for everyone. I understand it's very deep, it's very powerful. I call it's big girl stuff. It's nice to feel, and people feel incredibly healed and amazing, but this is for the pioneers and the leaders. This is for people that want to create the new earth. And the people that work with me are just drawn towards me, and I think I manifested you, or you just appeared, or I just saw you on this thing. And I was like, and then a bit like you, they're down the wormhole with me. Who is this? And I know that spirit will find the right people and bring them to me. And it's always an incredible journey. And it's always so powerful. And the beauty of it is that I learned so much through it as well. It's incredible, the parallels of people that come to me, that the teachings that come through for them, the parallels that come through for me, and the parallels in experience as well. It never manages to, it never doesn't astound me. That I'd say the real bonus is that I get to do this work and I get to walk away and think, wow, I didn't realize that. So we're all in it together. But that's just the beauty of working at that level of energy, because we're all connected, we're all one. Those teachings, the ripples they form in the pool, it affects all of us because we're all that level of energy.
Yeah. And I think I manifested you too. I have now I look back, I have no idea how I got your profile, how I messaged, like I have to actually go and check, because it all seems like a big haze to me. And I was just having a conversation about you with my husband yesterday, and all disclaimer, I'm saving up. Okay. I'm saving up because it's insane. I don't know if people listening to the episode can feel it, but your energy is insane. And I know a lot of people have told you again and again, and I don't mind repeating it. It's crazy. And we are almost to the end of the podcast. And one question that I would ask you is, we spoke a lot about observing. We spoke a lot about observing, and I don't know if it's the right word, but disassociating ourselves when we look at those incidents without emotions and just observing them. I don't know if I'm putting the right words to it, but you get the point.
Yeah.
For someone who is early in their journey, when their ego is still really loud, when their soul is not loud enough that they can hear it, how can they observe? How can they start the process of observing?
Okay. It is literally like to take a step back in your mind. So we talked earlier about the kind of parts of us that are the self-hatred, which is usually where people, that kind of level is where people want to get involved with ego. So it's interesting to be able to separate. So there's a guy called Adyashanti who I love some of his work, and he talks about this idea of calling it sweetheart. And it's really funny because it's about having humor in all of this, not taking it too seriously. And when that voice starts, you need to be doing this, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. He teaches this process where you're like, oh, sweetheart, what's the matter now? So beginning to recognize that voice, and just those words in themselves in your mind, oh, sweet, oh, you can't do that, oh, this is going to happen, or we get those we think about something and then the mind plays like 50 experiences of just total disaster, rather than, oh, it could go all right, but what about? So it's like, oh, sweetheart, what's the matter now? And when we can begin to separate that and see that it's just the ego, we can't have that vision. To be the observer, imagine you're going to a sporting event and or like a music event, and you're in the big arena, and the singer is there at the front and they're singing the song, and you can feel that music and it's so beautiful. And you can connect to that song in your own way and put your own experience on it. And the sign of a really good song is that everyone can do that. When people hear that song, they connect their own experience to it and they draw it into them. But as the ego, we feel like the singer on the stage, like everyone's watching us and judging every second of that performance. I'm lucky enough to know people in the media, and they're like, oh, my microphone's like this, and oh, my sock wasn't tucked in properly, and all of this kind of, they're panicking about what everyone's thinking. But everyone that's in the audience, the observers, are purely there for the music. And when we can observe in that sense, when we take ourselves and being the performer to the crowd and being there because we love it and we connect to our own thing within it, it takes that pressure off us. The ego, like I said, is always hurrying. It's like, why the rush? And just to be able to think, come on, what's the and when you start doing it, you're giggling because that voice is there. What's the matter now, sweetheart? And when you can begin to speak to her in that level, it's okay. We can begin to see through the fallacy of it and the pain and suffering that comes alongside that separation, that feeling, like we talked about earlier, like this little tiny being on a rock, hanging on for dear life, flying through space at goodness knows how many million miles an hour. It's that process. And so it's my best piece of advice to anyone that wants to start on this journey is don't take it too seriously. I know from working with Source and with Spirit, they've got a great sense of humour. And most of us who've had those spiritual lessons and awakening and things, as you said, you're always like, really? Now? This is it? And it's always with humour. We're expecting this big, super serious kind of in come the angels on the chariots, and it's usually the most mundane thing or the most crazy moment, like when we're not expecting it. It's not when we're in the temple or climbing the mountain or something like that. For most people, they're usually like doing the weekly shop or brushing their hair or something. So just don't take it too seriously and don't think that you have to be doing it all the time, because we're all worthy of it.
Yeah.
There's nothing you need to do. You just need to allow it.
So funny you spoke about the ego in that way, because at times when I have the time, when my ego is really, really loud, what my soul has automatically started to do is, and I don't know if I'm explaining this properly, okay? So it becomes like an out of body experience where I can see Ashwati sitting in front of me, who is actually my ego, and I become my soul. Okay.
Yeah.
And I let her rant, I let her cry, I let her question, I let her voice out her fears and judgments. And I'm just here watching. And at the end of the complete thing, after she's just let all her emotions and feelings out, when she calms down, I just go and hug her.
Yeah.
And it's been, I think 2 or 3 months back, I did that involuntarily. I was like, what am I doing? And even the ego, which was in front of me, she was like, what's happening? What the fuck's happening? What are you doing? And I'm like, just rant and just get all your emotions out. So it was fascinating. When you spoke of the ego as though it's a part of you and not the whole you, right? It's your ego is not you. Yeah. It's very fascinating and mind-boggling.
It's difficult because the ego is you and it isn't
Exactly.
you.
The paradox, right?
But when it's railroaded every other part of you and it's running the show, that we can get into difficulty, so to speak, because whether we like it or not, the ego, it isn't a physical being. It's just within the mind, and the monkey mind, as they say in Chinese traditions, which is great, this naughty little monkey that scurries around. And if it's not given a job, the ego will get busy on its own accord. It's difficult because I think there used to be a very kind of like ego death and all of this kind of stuff. And you were like, that bad, this is the part of us that's taken on all this suffering, and now we're going to go in there and finish it off. We can't exist without it, but it's about making peace with it. And as with anything else, if it has an issue with stuff, the hardest thing is to get the ego to switch and be positive. That's what we want it to do. So instead of going, this terrible thing could happen and this might happen, and playing these arguments in our mind, how about if we can get to a space where when we think, oh, I want to go, and that our ego goes, brilliant, that'd be amazing. Just think of all these great things that are going to happen, and it's going to be so easy. And wow, what an exciting, I can't believe this experience has been presented to me. What an incredible opportunity. What a wonderful life I get to lead. I wonder how much I'm going to find out about myself in this great process. What about if we thought about a process where we think, okay, I'm going to go and have a negotiation with someone, and it's maybe not the easiest thing to us. It might be a boundary we're setting. It might feel uncomfortable. But how about if we had an ego that was like, we can do this. We've got the power to do this. And if this person doesn't understand, then they're not for us anyway. So we're strong enough. We're powerful enough. Whatever happens in this experience, I know it's going to be the greatest lesson for me, and I'm going to get exactly what I need out of it. So I'm going to walk in there and speak my truth, and whatever happens is going to be exactly what needs to happen for me, because this is my life, this is my journey, this is my experience, and it's all for me. This is just going to bring me to a greater place and understanding of myself. That's what the ego can do for us.
Yeah.
In every moment. But when we connect to our power, when we connect to that part of ourselves, and we're like, yeah, I've got this.
Wow.
It's a whole new world.
I know, right? It's
And it's not all
mind-boggling.
happy clappy and like, woo! You can still have a good sense of humor and be very grounded and very gentle in it. But it's just to know that you are safe, supported, and loved in every moment. And have an ego that's on side with that. When every part of you is, yeah, we're going this way. This is all for us. Brilliant. Every moment of life is a gift. It's like a continual birthday party. Everyone arrives. If we think of it, that everyone that comes to us brings a present. It's just not a physical present. And life's a continual party.
Yeah.
It's a much more wonderful way to look at life. And we can see it for the gift it truly is.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you
My pleasure.
so much, Kat. And I know I'll cherish this call for a very long time. And just have no words. It meant a lot that you're here. And yeah, I'm really blank and speechless. Thank you. That's all I can say.
The energy's here for that. Sometimes when we work with energy on this level, it's beyond words. And that's the true beauty of it. We're taught that words communicate everything, but energy communicates 1,000 words in an instant.
Yeah. I've stopped forcing myself to give words to every emotion and feeling that I have. And I'm like, it's okay. If that other person feels it and I know that they feel it, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Oh, have an amazing day. And I am going to put the links for people to reach out to you in the description of the podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much again. I know I have repeated it like 1 billion times already, but I don't give it up. Okay. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Enjoy the rest of your day. I hope it cools down a little bit for you. Maybe you could send a bit of heat over here, because we're on spring's kind of been non-existent here. So in the UK, we're just getting into the heat now. So yeah, send us a few degrees of heat over and we can balance out.
Yes, yes. I wish it works that way.
Me too. Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for having me. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
And I'll see you. Okay.
And
Take
keep being
care.
your
Bye-bye.
awesome self. Okay.
I shall. You too.
Yes. Bye.